When you think of Disney's scariest attractions, you might think of the Tower of Terror, the Haunted Mansion. Years ago, there was an attraction at the Magic Kingdom that was so scary that it had to be closed forever. We are going to be discussing the history, secrets, and remnants of Disney's ExtraTERRORestrial alien encounter. Like many of the best stories from Disney history, this one starts out in the 1980s. The CEO during this time period was Walt Disney's son-in-law, Ron Miller, and the company as a whole wasn't doing so hot, so the board decided to vote poor Ron Miller off the island. Now in comes Michael Eisner. Now say what you want about Michael Eisner, but he was very involved in everything going on once he became Disney's CEO in 1984. In the early days of his Disney career, Eisner and his teenage son were visiting Disneyland, and his son expressed that there wasn't much to do for kids his age. So what did Michael Eisner do about it? He got the creator of the most popular film franchise in history, the director of The Godfather, and the king of pop to create the 4D masterpiece known as Captain EO. For those who don't know what Captain EO was, it was a 4D show that first premiered at Disneyland's Tomorrowland but was shown at Disney parks around the world. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll link it below. This was the first teenage-oriented attraction to open at the Disney parks, with Star Tours being the next one. With the success of Captain EO and Star Tours, Michael Eisner wanted to create even more sci-fi attractions catered towards young adults, and if you're gonna build an attraction in Disneyland, why not theme it after the R-rated 1979 horror classic, Alien? Yeah, you can probably see why it wouldn't be the best idea to put an alien attraction inside the family-friendly castle parks, and all the old-school Imagineers that were still with WDI at the time thought the same thing. Eisner was eventually talked out of the alien ride concept, but the Xenomorph still managed to sneak its way into the parks in the form of a scene during the Great Movie Ride at Disney MGM Studios in 1989. Around that same time, Imagineers were working on plans to overhaul and update Tomorrowland at both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. The goal was to give both Tomorrowlands a timeless theme, much like Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris. One of the attractions on the chopping block was Mission to Mars, which had been around since Disneyland opened in 1955. Back then it was called Rocket to the Moon. The attraction was popular back in the day, but had become very dated by the late 80s. The idea for an alien attraction came up once again, and this time Eisner was determined to make it happen. Early ideas for the alien attraction would have guests board the spaceship Nostromo and take on the Xenomorph. The ride system would have been a shooter-style dark ride, something similar to the Buzz Lightyear attractions found at Disney parks around the world. But that same group of old-school Imagineers still weren't sold on the idea of having an R-rated movie being incorporated into Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom, so they called up their new buddy George Lucas and asked him to talk some sense into Michael Eisner. While George Lucas did get Michael Eisner to drop the alien theme, eventually Eisner brought Lucas onto the project to help create their own story and characters for an attraction known as Alien Encounter. In 1990, Disney announced that both US parks would be getting a Tomorrowland refurbishment as well as their own versions of Alien Encounter to replace Mission to Mars. But like most announcements around this time, plans were scaled back after Euro Disneyland didn't do so hot financially during its first year of operation. The plans for Disneyland's Tomorrowland 2055 were canceled, and the space that was going to be used for Alien Encounter became Red Rocket's Pizza Port. Oh, what's Tomorrowland 2055, you might ask? I'll link that video down below. Magic Kingdom had already begun construction on its intergalactic spaceport version of Tomorrowland, and not wanting to waste the years of research and development, it was decided that Alien Encounter would open along with the refurbished land in 1995. The attraction's soft opening was on December 16th, 1994, and this early test version of the ride was very different than the version that would open later in 1995. The tone towards the beginning of the experience was much more comedic, leading guests to believe that this was just like a family-friendly Disney attraction, but once you entered XS Tech's teleportation chamber, things definitely changed. Reports from the first few shows say that you couldn't even hear the attraction audio because guests were screaming so loud. The attraction absolutely terrified guests that went in thinking that it was just a little alien show at Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland. Obviously, this didn't sit well with Disney, so the attraction was closed to make a few changes. Now, you'd think that they'd take this time to tone down the scarier elements, make it a little more kid-friendly. Nope, they decided to go all in and make the pre-show even creepier so that guests would know what they were in for later. Something I want to note here is that around the same time, Disney released a fake alien documentary to help promote the attraction. It's really really weird, and I totally recommend you go check it out after you're done watching this video. People thought that the documentary was real and truly believed that it was Disney and the government's way of confirming that aliens exist. This just added to the creepy aura surrounding the attraction. After being closed for about 6 months, the final version of ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter opened to the public on June 20th, 1995. Guests were welcomed into the Tomorrowland Convention Center to view a teleportation demonstration presented by XS Tech. The whole Alien Encounter experience took about 20 minutes from start to finish. The first pre-show room had 3 TVs mounted to the wall that would play a short video giving you the backstory of XS Tech and would set up the story for the rest of the attraction. Before the video played, there was a slideshow of upcoming events at the convention center. One of these was an interstellar debate titled Mission to Mars, History or Hoax, and it was to be hosted by Professor Tom Morrow. This, of course, is a reference to the Mission to Mars attraction that used to be housed in the same building. Many of the XS Tech employees were played by popular actors at the time, like Tyra Banks, Kathy Najimy, Kevin Pollak, and Jeffrey Jones, who we will definitely be talking about later on in the video. All the live-action segments were directed by Jerry Reese, who worked on films like Tron and The Brave Little Toaster. He also worked on countless Disney Parks attractions like Cranium Command, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Dinosaur. In the second pre-show room, you were greeted by an animatronic robot named Sir, which stands for Simulated Intelligence Robotics. In this final version of the attraction, Sir was voiced by Tim Curry, but originally he was voiced by Phil Hartman, which definitely made the scene a little more comedic. For example, here's Phil Hartman's voice in the early 1994 test version.
Well, how would you like to travel anywhere, anytime, at the touch of a button?
And here's Tim Curry in the final version from 1995.
What do you want, Skippy? No, you may not get out. You're a lucky volunteer.
Skippy was broken down atom by atom and sent to the teleportation tube across the room, but the poor little guy was burnt in the process. Sir is then reminded that he can reverse the process by suspending it indefinitely, which, to my understanding, kills poor Skippy by suspending his broken down molecules in space. So yeah, definitely a lot darker than the original 1994 version. Guests then proceed to the main test chamber where one lucky visitor will be chosen to be teleported to the XS headquarters. There were 2 identical theaters that could hold up to 140 guests. It's here that we're introduced to Spinlock, the director of operations, as well as teleportation scientist Dr. Femus, who were known as Spittlewort and Dr. Morthos in the original drafts of the Alien Encounter script. Once you're settled in your seats, Chairman Clench announces that there's going to be a change in plans. He decides that he's going to be sent to Earth instead, but once the teleportation sequence is initiated, Chairman Clench's signal is lost and the alien technicians accidentally, I'm doing air quotes here, accidentally send an alien creature into the chamber. The terrifying winged carnivorous creature begins to break free from the tube and cuts the power in the theater. A real live cast member playing a maintenance worker holding a flashlight enters the catwalks above the room and attempts to restore power, but is seemingly eaten by the alien. Even though you couldn't see them, a cast member would actually dress up for the part wearing boots, gloves, a hard hat, and knee pads. In the original 1994 version, the alien would also eat some of the guests, but that audio ended up getting removed. The theater was equipped with state-of-the-art special effects that made it feel like the alien was flying past your face, crawling on your back, and drooling on you. The shoulder restraints also had binaural audio speakers which helped give the illusion that the alien was right behind you at all times, breathing down your neck. Eventually the power is restored and Dr. Femus manages to get the alien back into the tube by screaming into the speakers. Originally the attraction ended with the shield closing and Clench finally being teleported to Earth but getting stuck inside the tube. The final version had the shield come down and the alien would explode with his guts raining down on the guests. In reality it's just water, but it's still a pretty gross concept. Spinlock and Femus would thank you for coming to the demonstration, then your shoulder restraints would raise, and you were free to enjoy the rest of your day at the Magic Kingdom. Overall guest perception of the attraction was pretty negative despite the numerous warnings and the creepy pre-show. Parents still brought their young children to the attraction and then would complain that the scary alien ride was too scary. I will say there was a small group of fans out there that thought the show was amazing and would praise it for its special effects, story, and the simple fact that it was something edgy for teenagers and adults to do in the Magic Kingdom. In the Merchant of Venus gift shop, you could find an entire line of Alien Encounter merchandise. They had toys, t-shirts, pins, literally everything. It's kind of cool that Disney gave a brand new attraction its own line of merchandise. Now there are 2 main theories as to why the attraction closed. One of them is that the the volume of complaints was so high and the wait times were so low that Disney really didn't see a point in keeping the attraction open. The other one involves Chairman Clench's actor Jeffrey Jones, who was arrested in 2001 for being in possession of some very inappropriate material. Disney definitely didn't want an attraction where its main star was involved in a very inappropriate situation with kids. Ultimately, ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter closed its doors on October 12, 2003. And a little over a year later, Stitch's Great Escape opened on November 16, 2004. Lilo and Stitch was super popular at the time, so it totally made sense to add the intergalactic elements of the movie into Tomorrowland. Stitch's Great Escape pretty much reused everything that it could from Alien Encounter. They only changed a few things, like a new paint job throughout the attraction, the live action videos being replaced with animated characters from the film, the animatronics in the pre-show getting new skins, and the evil alien being replaced with an Experiment 626 animatronic. Oh, and of course the plot for the attraction was a little different too. But much like its predecessor, Alien Encounter, Stitch's Great Escape's popularity slowly started to decline, and it switched to seasonal operation in October of 2016 and had its final show on January 6th of 2018. After the final show, a Twitter user named Backdoor Disney broke into the attraction and leaked a bunch of behind-the-scenes photos. He showed the theater and pre-show being used as break rooms, as well as the animatronics being dismantled and just laying on the ground. He went on to get arrested for breaking into a bunch of backstage areas, so I definitely don't condone what he did, but it was really cool to see these behind-the-scenes photos. Many thought that the attraction would just open back up during the peak seasons, but it remained closed, just sitting abandoned, and in July of 2020, it was confirmed by Disney that it would not be coming back. The entire show building remains abandoned to this day. Occasionally, the pre-show is used as a Stitch meet and greet area, but the two theaters are just used as break rooms now. So what secrets and remnants remain from Alien Encounter? Pretty much nothing. Stitch's Great Escape had a bunch of excess tech logos all over the attraction. The Skippy animatronic survived the retheme. Many of the props and set decorations were the same. So were the seats and shoulder restraints. When one of the shoulder restraints was broken, they had this plastic cover that they'd put on top of it. It had an excess logo on it, and it also said temporarily seized, which was a reference to Excess Tech's motto of seize the future. I couldn't find any video evidence of this one, but if you hung around in the theater after Stitch escapes, rumor has it that you could still hear the alien breathing. In 2017, the pre-show of Stitch's Great Escape was used as a trick-or-treat trail during Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. I bought a ticket to the party with the sole purpose of documenting the pre-show of Stitch's Great Escape, so I spent about 2 hours wandering around the area documenting every square inch of that building. Well, all the areas that were open during that time, of course. I think one day in the future I'll do a whole video dedicated to Stitch's Great Escape, and I'll show all the detailed photos I took that day and all the little behind-the-scenes videos I have. But now that Stitch's Great Escape is gone, so are all those Alien Encounter remnants. Well, they're still in there, they're just closed off to the public. After Stitch's Great Escape closed, it was renamed to Stitch's Alien Encounter Character Greeting, so that was a cool nod to Alien Encounter, but even that's gone now. A lot of people believe that the alien animatronic was reused at Tokyo Disney Sea's Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction, but unfortunately that's not true. The lava creature does bear some striking similarities to the alien, but they are in fact completely different animatronic figures. I guess now would be a good time to mention that there was a game at Disney Quest called Invasion, an extraterrestrial alien encounter. You and 3 other guests would hop aboard the XS-5000 rescue unit to save human colonists from an alien invasion. I also think it's worth noting that Jeffrey Jones's character LC Clench was featured in the pre-show for this attraction as well, and this experience ended up closing with the rest of Disney Quest in 2017. So yeah, Alien Encounter has pretty much been erased from existence. The only real current day reference to Alien Encounter that I know about is at Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout in Disney California Adventure. Inside the collector's office, you can see an invoice from Excess Tech sitting on his desk. It looks like Tannelier Tavan hired Excess Tech to do some research and development on electro-robotics, cryo-cybernetics, techno-surveillance systems, genetic engineering, and hyperspatial transportation, which are all references to Alien Encounter's pre-show. This invoice also has a seller's note at the bottom, which is signed by LC Clench. There's another note on top of the invoice, so you really can't see what Clench wrote to the collector, but it's cool to know that the world of Alien Encounter still lives on in a very small way. With the former Alien Encounter Theater in the Round show building remaining abandoned, this little reference in Mission Breakout is the only remnant we have left. Maybe we'll have to revisit this topic when a new attraction comes along to replace Stitch's Great Escape. Whatever the replacement may be, I hope Disney really takes their time and creates a great attraction and doesn't just slap The Incredibles or Wreck-It Ralph in there, because that just wouldn't make sense at all. Alien Encounter may be gone, but its reputation as Disney's most terrifying attraction lives on with fans of the parks. Whether you have fond memories of the unforgettable encounter or are just learning about it for the first time, I think it goes to show that if something can't be done with excess, then it shouldn't be done at all.